I'd love to welcome you all today for commercetools' first ANZ event. So what we're here today to do is introduce everybody to commercetools. We have Bruno Tuber here, Chief Revenue Officer from commercetools. He's in market and is going to be giving us a bit of an update, and then also a sneak peek into some exclusive research that we've done for ANZ. And then we're going to have an engaging panel session led by myself and our panelists here today. So Bruno, over to you.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet all of you. As you can hear, I'm not from here. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm in town for a couple of days, going to Melbourne later this week. As mentioned, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer, which basically means I'm overlooking the entire go-to-market organization for commercetools globally. And before I dive into the presentation, just a quick story about myself and Australia. So when I joined commercetools back about 5 years ago, we didn't really have a customer nor a team in Australia, and by the end of 2019, we had the opportunity to win our first customer in region, and that was the trigger for a decision to basically invest locally. We started working with Google to build a cloud center infrastructure where we can host our technology in Sydney, and we also started to build a team. So I came down on the 9th of March 2020, only Melbourne. I didn't make it to Sydney. I'll spare you with the details as to why, or you'll find out in a second. But if you remember, that was kind of like the week of everything was still great. There was Formula One race planned to happen in Melbourne on the 13th or 14th of March. I was in Melbourne in the hotel where most of the drivers were. We had customer meetings, we had a customer/prospect partner event. And on Thursday that week, I was planning to fly back through Singapore, back to Zurich. People tried to convince me to stay because of the race. And I said, no, I have a family at home, I need to go back. So I decided to go back on Thursday. When I landed in Singapore, there was an announcement that the race got canceled. And that was the last day before COVID. I was on the last flight home from Singapore to Zurich, because otherwise I probably would have become a local here. So I was quite lucky from a timing point of view, but that kind of like was my, I was in obviously Australia before, but for commercetools, that was kind of like my initial trip, which was quite special, or it felt quite special. And obviously, if you maybe go to the next slide quickly, talking about commercetools for a moment, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, but we are a global operator, software company, SaaS company, who is basically putting our product into the market for very sophisticated online, but also not online only businesses. So we have a lot of customers. I think it's more closer to 500 than 450, what you see on that slide. A few names out of Australia. We have 38 customers last time I checked, earlier this week. And we are selling our platform, and our customers are using our platform to basically deliver the best possible shopping experience for their online business. And as I mentioned before, and we have one of our customers here, fortunately, Florian, thanks for joining. Some of them have a pure play online situation. Some of them are using our technology and platform for parts of their business or growing parts of their business. So that's basically who we are. If we want to go to the next slide quickly. Just a couple of statistics or some numbers. On the right side, you just see how much GMV is going over our platform from those roughly 500 customers. So if it's basically the sum of all transactions going through commercetools from those roughly 500 customers, and obviously that number is quite staggering. I think it's going to become around 40 billion in 2024. That's what we estimate, and it will continue to grow fast because a lot of companies obviously grow their online business, and as we are an integral part of their technology stack they are just transacting more and more over our platform. As I mentioned before, we are a SaaS company, which basically means that if a customer is using our platform, we are like a pure play in the cloud platform. So it's not like in the back old days when you basically use a platform and then you're stuck forever and you cannot really change things much. In our situation, we are deploying new releases and functions every single day, multiple times, and that's why the ability to keep that platform fresh, alive, and I'm going into that in a second, relevant for today's and future's shopping experiences for customers is absolutely essential and key. I don't want to bore you with those numbers before, so thanks for putting the next slide on. I think one of the things we have worked on quite significantly as a company, and we call it Foundry as a code name. I didn't even know what Foundry meant, but now I do. Is to make things simpler. So because we are an API-first platform, so everything our customers are doing is going through APIs. For a lot of organizations who are very technical savvy, this is of course, and that's easy, let's just do it. But more and more, the more we go into a mainstream market and more companies are keen to use a technology like commercetools, we had to invest time, effort, and energy to make it as simple as possible, although the underlying technology is still the same and still relatively complex. So we invested a lot of time to basically roll out Foundry, which is I would call it a blueprint. It's like a best practices guidance, so our customers don't have to start from scratch, but they can use components, pre-composed components. They can use a simplified documentation, et cetera, in order to make this quicker, easier, and faster for them. And we have started to roll this out only about 4 or 5 months ago, team, I think in December. As part of that, we are starting to see a lot of additional traction in the marketplace for companies who didn't actually want to talk to us before because we were just like this hyper-complex platform. So I think this is a great decision we have taken from my point of view, and it's only just a starting point. I think we will continue to invest our time and energy to go down that path much more. If we want to maybe now jump into the research, obviously, researchers are always here for a lot of different reasons. For us, research is obviously first and foremost to understand the market, the consumer behavior, how people think, act, and behave. That's very important. But as a result of that, from my point of view, even more important thing for us is what does that mean for our product and our product investment going forward. So where should we put our time and energy into future releases and future functionalities so that we can best possibly serve the future requirements of how consumers actually, work with or interact with brands and how they buy online and how they use social to take purchasing decisions and what they're getting fed up with or not. And so I think there's a lot of information in this research if we maybe want to dive in. I think we are just summarizing and just going to capture a couple of things. Obviously, this is a very busy slide, but I think the summary of the slide is, people do actually have expectations and needs to have personalized experience. I think it's everybody saying, of course, but if I look into my own consumer behavior and how and where I'm actually engaging the most is in places where I personally feel the other side of the table knows me and know my behavior versus always starting from scratch. So that's a very important, I think, result. And, I think, this probably is also clear without research, but it just shows that, 72% are basically in that camp where they're saying, personalized experience is very important for them. If we go to the next one, I mentioned quickly social before. I think, we all, I don't use all the social channels. I'm probably too old for that. But it is becoming an increasing topic. I think, what used to be the website in the past is not longer relevant for a lot of people because they're interacting completely differently through social channels. So, and if a consumer or an organization who is trying to sell or provide a service to somebody else and is not in a position or capable to reach that potential customer or existing customer through those channels this person is using, is basically pointless. So I think at the end of the day, what that means is that organizations just need to figure out a way how they can, in the best and simplest and fastest possible way, use social channels and upcoming things which we may not even know about. I mean, I don't know, how long is TikTok around? 3-4 years, properly?
Yeah, it's been around in ANZ for 5 years now. So it's growing fast. It's one of the leading platforms.
Exactly.
And they've really picked up with how they interact online and get people to link through to other brands.
Exactly. So I think that there's more and more of that coming. And if a brand doesn't have the technology, flexibility, and scalability underneath in order to actually reach customers and consumers through those upcoming channels, it's a challenge, right? And we are, I'm not going to talk about competition a lot here, but or maybe there will be questions about this, but we are operating in a market of e-commerce platforms where pretty much all of our competitors have 23 to 25-year-old code bases. They were all invented when the internet became transactional, in 1995, 6, 7, and they have all a very monolithic, very slow ability to change kind of like situation. So it's I call it spaghetti code. The ability to quake, and maybe Florian can talk about this later, the ability to make quick decisions about, okay, we need to change something because of the user behavior is not great and or the user experience need to be adjusted. This should be hours or days. In our competitor situation, it's sometimes months or even years to make a button to move 1 inch to the right, for example. That's just and so I think the ability to really be quick, fast, agile, and make imminent decisions in order to apply this to the market the best and simplest and possible way, I think is essential. And of course, they are frustrated, like all of us, when we are in the online world, and there is a lot of bits and pieces which unfortunately still don't work today, and they are. They are just out there. So I think the ability and requirement for organizations to continue to work and invest on making things better and simpler is absolutely essential. And there's just kind of like some interesting statistics here where you just see how even the simplest things, which appear to be simple, don't work, right? And if I'm a potential customer or consumer and I'm looking in an online experience, I see, the first one, the product description or the wrong photo against the product description, et cetera, et cetera. It's just, how is this even possible? But it is a challenge out there.
It's like a silly mistake, and it's the same problems we were seeing 10 years ago as well, which is surprising that they are still tripping up frustrations and ultimately the purchasing decision of those end users and consumers.
Exactly.
What's interesting to see is we've kind of got more coming up there around poor site performance, which is, again, shocking in this day and age with the speeds that we have, that's, again, being a frustration that's called out.
Yeah, it's thanks for calling it out. I think it's also a point on the next slide, but it is, so we guarantee sub 100 millisecond response time on our platform. So it's like 0.1 second, and this is ultra fast, but it's also becoming a requirement in the market for people who have no patience, just saying, I'm in a shopping experience, I'm in a user experience, and if I have to wait half a second or a second because, until something is responding, they're just moving away. And sometimes I think, really, I mean, a second is actually quite short, but we have a lot of statistics through our customers and partners where, the performance is just an absolute essential and increasing a topic, which fortunately, because we are sitting on top of a very dynamic and fast-performing cloud infrastructure underneath with Google, we can deliver that. So another way to look at this is just what are people actually looking for and what they really want. And I think I'm not going to go through all of them, but the first is kind of like, from my point of view, the most essential one. So at the end of the day, you're going through a process of potentially buying something, and if the end part of that process becomes complex, you have to enter credit card information, you have to enter your details, kind of, et cetera, and the checkout process is just cumbersome. I personally, and a lot of people, and it shows here, we're just saying, oh, this is too complex, I'm moving away, I'm doing this tomorrow or never, right? So I think the ability for organizations to really invest time and energy to make this as seamless as possible is absolutely essential. And Ben and I had an opportunity yesterday to meet one of our key partners here, AKQA, which is part of WPP, and we talked about that a lot of times brands actually spend a huge amount of time and energy to make the design of their online appearance, whether it's a website or an app, as good looking as possible, but they're spending no time in cognitive thought processes. So how does the human brain actually work in like interacting with technology or an appearance of some sort? And so I think a lot of times something may look great, but it doesn't serve its purpose. So I think the ability to figure out a way on the front side to make this as seamless as possible, where people have an appetite to actually end the process, is essential. And then obviously the second point here is search is key. If you're looking for something, you need to find it. If you don't find it, you don't buy. It's as simple as that. And so I think those are the two key components. And then obviously the shipping back, that's obviously for B2C more than B2B, which we are playing as well. But that is essential.
Definitely. And also we've got the appearance of AI-enabled experiences appear on there, which I think 2 years ago, before the rise and the hype of Gen AI that we've seen in the media, that wouldn't have even come across people's minds to have included or opt for. So yeah, it's interesting to see that at nearly 6% coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically all about, also the first touch point, it was about, the personalization. But on the AI side, I'm a little bit, obviously everybody talks about it, right? The whole world within 12 months or 24 months of non-existence, everybody is kind of talking about AI, and obviously it's a great topic. We had an event in Miami, our first ever customer and partner event called Elevate a couple of weeks ago, and we had a great person from IDC, researcher, who talked about, and her point was, it is not human versus AI, it's human and AI. And I think brands will have to figure out and have the advantage of trying to use AI to support consumer behavior and to support figuring out the way the best possible shopping experience, whether this is B2C or B2B. So I think we are only getting started on this topic. I think it is important. Privacy is important too, but I would say, like myself, and we joked about before, I think everybody, I feel, is kind of the same. We all say privacy is very important, but then when it comes down to looking at something, finding something, we all just accept all the cookies and everything without even thinking about it on a phone or a website. So it's a double-edged sword, right? And at the end of the day, I think brands and consumers have to just kind of like keep this in mind and figure out a way what is best for each brand and each consumer in that space. And then, last but not least, I think we have a lot of customers. So one of our largest customer, actually two, is one is Sephora, and one is Lululemon. And I think the ability for them to use technologies like VR, et cetera, in order to provide a user experience over and above just an app or a website is becoming an increasing topic, especially for less older people than I am. So like for the newer generations of people who grow up and born and raised in the digital world, offering them an experience which is over and above what we are used to, I think is very important in the consumer world, in the retail world, but I think also increasingly important in the B2B world, because there is a lot of opportunities to use technologies like that to support a process, a buying process or a buying decision for companies to work with other companies.
Definitely, and I think in the sector of gaming as well, we're seeing a lot of in-game purchases being made and opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that AR and VR is really, really important there for the younger audience.
To summarize from my point of view, I do think, the research showed results which were not a huge surprise, but they are also, as I mentioned at the beginning, hugely important for our partners, ourselves, and our customers to make the right decisions about how to invest in product, how to build best possible shopping experiences and sites, and in order to kind of like focus time and energy on stuff which is relevant to the consumer and the potential buyer, versus feeling and believing it should be the right decision to go down that path versus this one. So I think it is a great exercise we have done, and hopefully we can take advantage of that together with our customers and partners. So with that, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bruno. That was brilliant. So now we're going to kick on to the second part of our event, in which we're going to have a panel discussion with a customer and also a partner of commercetools. So first up, could I please welcome Florian Pasquier. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Karma. Karma is a pre-owned cars sales platform, and they're looking at a new way of creating an experience online that's hassle-free and enables people to purchase cars quickly and easily. Welcome, Florian. Do you want to give us a bit of a summary about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So, in a nutshell, Karma is a fully online dealership that sets out to transform radically the used car industry. So we anchored the business in the diagnostic that the way Australians are buying used car at the moment is suboptimal. This is a very stressful, always emotional, and often disappointed experience. And when you think about that, buying a car is one of the largest items that an household will purchase. And we felt that there was a massive opportunity to realign the importance of that purchase with a first-class experience. And that's why we basically built Karma. The way we redesigned entirely that experience was to look at every single part of the supply chain and the experience and to redesign it with the customer at the center. So from sourcing high-quality cars to reconditioning them within our state-of-the-art facilities, promoting the assets into our custom-made web platform where the customer can search for the car, can pay for the car, can finance the car, to the last mile handover where we deliver the car to their doorstep for free with a 7 days return. So overall, we've been incorporated for 3 years. We've been selling cars for 2.5 years. And I think the largest testament to the fact that I think we really nailed that part of the experience is what customers are saying about us. Most, when they start, are skeptical about, well, buying online a car is a bit intimidating at first. But after the Karma experience, almost all of them say they will never buy a car in a different manner. So I think this is very exciting to be in a place where you actually really disrupt and long-standing industry. It's definitely not easy. And that's where like choosing the right partner, the right technology stack to supporting the business is essential.
Fantastic. It's interesting how technology has become very much part of the brand and how that perception is also built over time. Thank you. And also I'd like to welcome up Brenton Clark. He's head of ISV's partnership at Google Cloud. Very excited to have you here, Brenton. Thank you. If you'd like to just give a bit of a summary, Brenton, to kick us off about how you work with ISVs such as commercetools from
Yeah, so firstly, thank you for having me here today. So Google Cloud has a very rich ISV or independent software vendor ecosystem made up of global and local partners. commercetools is a great example. We heard Bruno speak earlier about speeds and feeds and how Google Cloud equips commercetools to deliver the speed they need for their customers. From my perspective, commercetools allows us to deliver something to our customers that we may not already have. It's that complementary solution that commercetools delivers that allows us to bring something to our customer ecosystem. My role and the role of my team is to identify customers' challenges and bring the ISVs to the customer that can help them solve those challenges, whether they're technical or business. And that's where commercetools and our partnership comes together.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's really interesting that you must have such an overview of the patterns and trends that you're seeing and the challenges from customers. So my first question will also just be moving over to Florian. Do you want to tell us, as a customer of both Google Cloud and also commercetools, what's been your experience working with them to create this kind of brand and this technology flow that you've built over the last 3 years?
Yeah, listen, I really believe that when you start a business and you bootstrap a technology muscle, it is very important to be deliberate about where you're going to spend your scarce resources, right? Most of the e-commerce shop would basically dedicate the entirety of their efforts into delivering features to their customers, right? To polish the house. And sometimes this is made at the expense of the underlying capability and the scalability of their platform, which then they're going to have to pay the debt of later on with inability to be able to change performance and so on and so forth. I think that's one of the things that really we wanted to do when we established and started developing that muscle at Karma. We didn't want to basically infer too much technical debt. We wanted to be able to bootstrap the business rapidly, but at the same time doing it in a way that would help us to be able to pivot and to be able to build on top of those foundations as we go. And that's why I find myself we are very, very lucky to be developing and building a business in that day and age where you have like these partners really can help you to focus on what matters for your customers without actually inferring too much technical debt. And that's true that commercetools is a very engineering-centric shop. And I think this is very important because it's more a matter of mindset rather than technology. The way they push you to think about your stack sets you up for success later on. So there's a bit of an initial investment that you need to make in hiring the right engineering team to make sure that actually you do the right thing. But I really believe that that investment will pay off over time.
Definitely. It's interesting what you say. They're almost creating something that's fit for purpose, but also future-proofed. Yeah. I guess we see a lot of companies nowadays that started 20-odd years ago at the beginning of the internet, and they're stacking on top of stacking. It's becoming a very complex environment. So my next question that I've got to you is, when we looked at the research that Bruno just took us through, it was interesting to see that despite economic uncertainties, consumers are willing to pay for more seamless and personalized experiences. How have you addressed that? What are you looking towards in the future?
Yeah, so as a retailer, we really strive to provide extremely competitive market price for our asset, for our cars. So I don't think like a customer coming to Karma would basically have that expectation that they will have to pay more. To be honest, when you're looking at the consumer behavior in the car market, people are extremely price sensitive, and so they should. However, where we definitely see that tick around, well, the experience is making a difference, is because we are disrupting the market. People are not expecting to, for example, not touching the car physically before acquiring the vehicle, right? And we're talking about a 50K purchase sometimes. So being able to actually deliver that tailored experience through technology and human connection is really what gets the customer over. Like, first they are a bit skeptical, and once basically they start experiencing the quality of the website, the quality of the information that we provide them with, the quality of the expert conversation that they have with our sales team, for example, that's what they say, oh, I have that impression of being special. I have that white glove service. And that builds and brings trust to the equation. And that's what basically most of the time converts the customer over. That's what I can say about that. I think, yeah.
No, that makes sense. So Bruno, going back to some of the research that you took us through, there are a fair few consumer frustrations there. So how are you working with Karma to kind of address those? And I'll throw that to everybody to kind of jump in and answer.
Yeah, thank you. I think Florian touched on it already. You know, we have obviously, through our, more than 10 years of history and the fact that we have 500 customers, we have established a lot of information and best practices in our organization. We have a customer success team who are actually helping our new customers and existing customers to go through the process of making the right choices and decisions architecturally, user experience, et cetera, et cetera. And it's funny, I have the opportunity to, obviously, we are a growing organization. The latest person who joined the customer success team was actually a person based in Melbourne. His name is Ben. And when I spoke to him after, I speak to all new employees after 2 weeks of their employment. When I spoke to him, he has a 10-year history at Adobe and Shopify, and he now joined us. And I said, when you have your first interaction with a customer, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I'm going to ask my new customer how many mistakes you want to make. And if the answer is no, I'm going to tell this person what to do. And I think, that's it's obviously simplified, but I think that's our opportunity, that because of the breadth of information and experience we have been able to gather over 500 customers and 10 or 12 years, giving this into our customer base and working with Karma and Florian to say, hey, Florian, based on our experience and based on our platform and so forth, we recommend and suggest you go down this path versus this path. And I think that has been, obviously it depends also on the level of experience and capability within the organization. And I think we have an extremely capable person with you. Some other organizations don't have that experience and they probably need more hand-holding and guidance. So it depends on which situation you're in.
Fantastic. And I guess with all this technology, you also need the cloud to back it up. So I'm going to throw over to Brendan. Do you want to take us through just the changes that you've seen in the past 5 years across the cloud space and the requirements that you're now seeing from your customers too?
Yeah, for sure. I'd also just, before I start, I'd like to say to Bruno's point, in a go-to-market perspective and working with ISV partners, it's really great when they have a healthy arrogance or a confidence about what they're bringing to the customer. I really appreciate that because it's a point of difference, and it's something that, the right customer will listen to the right advice, and that's something that we really appreciate getting out there, and that's why we work with ISV partners who specialize, and we work with ISV partners who complement what we have from Google Cloud. With regards to your question, I'll probably take more of a retail lens, just because of the event today. And funnily enough, the first part of the question, I'll say retailers are like any other enterprise business out there. They have a lot of data that they want to bring to the cloud in a secure way, and then they want to leverage that data to personalize for their customers, and we saw that in the research. So, that's like any enterprise business. But the second part, which is really retail centric, and I think, somewhat related to the times over the last few years, they need to be available to their customers 24/7. They're an online presence these days. If you're a retailer without an online presence, well, I don't know that you'd be a retailer anymore. And based on that, they need to make sure that they have, minimal to no downtime, and they're available for their customers when their customers need them. And that's where Google Cloud comes into it, from my perspective.
Fantastic, thank you. And I guess with that as well, talking about data and an increased use of data as well, it goes amiss that Gen AI is generating a lot of data and also requires that as well. So Florian, I just want to throw over to yourself. How are you looking at Gen AI as it becomes more ubiquitous across the technology stack? And what are your thoughts on it? And how are you also communicating that to your consumers?
All right. Do I have 30 minutes?
Try and speed up a little more.
So let's take a bit of a step back. So anytime there's a huge technology jump in society, as a species, I think we are going to have that ambivalent reaction of seeing the opportunity space and as well being deeply concerned about the magnitude of the change that are going to come. And that is apply to consumers, but to us as decision maker as well. It's not because we have technical knowledge that we don't feel intrinsically the challenges that this technology may represent to us as a society. And I think that's really my starting point, is really acknowledging the fact that this is moving so fast that no one, even the most academic person, actually is going to be able to predict where we're going to be in 6 months. So there's a bit of humility that I think I recommend any technology and business decision maker around that space before they start throwing AI at the face of their customer. So why I'm saying that is because I am a deep believer that all of this technology needs maturity in an organization, from an ethos standpoint, but as well from a data standpoint. So a few years ago, I used to say, well, a lot of organizations want to do machine learning, but they've still not harnessed entirely their data. And I think that's exactly the same with Gen AI. It's more accelerated, that amplify that risk of doing only the icing of the cake, that can be extremely powerful, of course, without actually understanding the foundation of your business. So that's why at Karma, we really took the approach of being careful, cautious. Of course, to stay relevant, we need to embrace these technologies, but most of our investment is spent on the data space, around how we structure our data, how we understand our data, how we treat privacy, and so on and so forth, and then progressively move up a ladder with machine learning and Gen AI. The way I'm recommending and pitching the business to approach that is essentially more, as you said, that partnership between the machine and the human. As an example, being able to equip our sales agent with qualitative and quantitative data about the car that comes from a large language model, right? So that they have actually a rich set of information and they can engage their customer with to give them better information, all right? That's typically that partnership, augmenting that partnership that we are looking at before we start basically putting a chatbot on our website. That's really, the first next years, I think, are going to be more that equipping and building up that relationship between the machine and the operator at the back.
Fantastic, thank you. That was really well explained. And you did it in under 30 minutes, which was amazing.
Unbelievable.
Brilliant. So I think the takeaway from that is ensure what you're putting in, the quality data, you then get quality outputs and you can then take a step-by-step approach. So thank you. So let's just move on now. And I'd like to throw to you, Bruno. What would you share as advice to businesses that are looking to future-proof their commerce strategy? Just a small question there for you.
Yeah, well, I think it ties very easily to what Florian just talked about. I think I call it investment into the unknown. What is known today doesn't mean it's relevant tomorrow, and tomorrow can be actually really tomorrow and not in 2 years. So the ability to make technology and platform decisions which allows you to make and adopt quickly, make changes, invest in new stuff, easy, I talked about it earlier today, is absolutely essential. I think, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it was all still very predictable. There was a website and nothing else. And then obviously iPhones came and then watches and social channels, et cetera, AI is now a new topic, how we can interact with that. And so I think having the ability and making the right investment decisions as an organization to be equipped to make fast changes and adopt is absolutely essential. Everything else is kind of irrelevant. If you need 6 months to move a button, as I said before, and it's actually true, 6 months to move a button for 1 inch to the right, you're losing for sure, right? So this needs to be 6 minutes or 6 hours versus 6 months.
Definitely interesting. And I suppose just maintaining it isn't enough in this competitor landscape either. You need to be a foot ahead and keep innovating as quickly as possible. Okay, fantastic. Florian, may I also ask the same question to yourself? So what advice would you give to other retailers, other commerce sites and brands that are looking to future-proof their business?
Yeah, I would quite happily basically just stand by what Bruno said, because I think this is spot on. However, I would just build on that a tiny bit by, I think, data and having the ability to reclaim your data, both from a data design perspective, a data model, if I may, and as well like purely from a storage perspective is extremely important. So a lot of the downsides of actually adopting and going with SaaS partners, actually they're going to reclaim your data. They're going to basically infer their own understanding of the data model to you. You have to use basically the way I understand the world because you're using my service, and I'm going to keep a copy of your customer data. I think in that day and age, it's something that decision makers need to be extremely aware of is in adopting technologies to make sure that one, okay, is really that representation of the world what I want for my business and how much I can customize that first, and is the data, my customer data, centered within my organization. As much as possible, if you can basically build your own data lake warehouse and keep your data in one place, it's so much better, not only from a privacy perspective, but from an activation standpoint. Because, as Bruno said, you don't know what this data is going to be worth tomorrow. When you scatter all your customer data across 20 different platforms, these relationships may change over time. You somewhat lose a lot of that ability to generate IP downstream. So I think that would be my recommendation. Set the foundation so that you get most of your data for yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. And then Brenton, throwing over to you from a cloud perspective, can you also give some advice, business advice for those looking at their commerce strategy?
Yeah, this is tough now because I think Florian has pretty much taken the Google Cloud sales pitch away from me and selling our data platform. However, what I will say, I'll echo what's already been said by both Bruno and Florian. You know, I think data is organizations' greatest challenge, but also their greatest gift. If they can get their data right, you know, that gift is ever recurring. And I think from a perspective of Google Cloud, I'll look at this with the lens of the ISV ecosystem. I think what we need to do is we need to continue to work with our ISV partners to make sure that they leverage our data platforms to surface the data that their customers need, and do it in a way that, you know, is actionable. And then what comes of that, and what I think is the after effect of that, is that the customers see the value of that data, and then they look further to, you know, developing their own data platforms and their data lake or data warehouse, and, you know, really investing more in what Florian said, that they, you know, they future-proof themselves and create future value by having a solid data platform. So for me, you know, as I said, we'll continue to work with the ISVs to leverage our you know, our products and create complementary products for them, and then, you know, give more insight to the customer, which is, you know, the area that we need to be.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. And I think what's great is through that you're educating the customers, because you're working with both big and small customers throughout this. And as we know, 2.2 million, I believe, businesses that make up the majority of the Australian economy are SMBs. And they don't always have access or education to some of that really, really important information around data storage. So it's great that working together, not in silo, but talking and communicating, really helps build and strengthen the chain of this commerce structure, which is great. So I just want to call a close to today. Thank you so much to the three of you and Bruno for also taking us through that research. I think what we've kind of seen is something where we're actually taking a greater look at the ecosystem for commerce and how these three different businesses are working together. And it's really important to see how it also impacts the end consumer. And through the research as well, we've seen how consumers are driving the demand and the need for new and innovative technology to encourage them to make purchases and also filter into the wider economy that we live in. So thank you ever so much, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll call a close. Thank you to everybody online. And we'll go now and have some refreshments and network.
Thank you very much.